You are standing before something that ticks. Not the mechanical ticking of devices designed to measure hours, but something deeper, something that resonates in the hollow of your chest, something that synchronizes with the pulse you have always taken for granted. Before you, the shop reveals itself not as a building but as a rhythm, a frequency that exists at the edge of perception, where the boundary between past and present grows thin as the membrane of a drum. This is not a place you find by searching, not a destination that waits on any street in any city you could name, but a convergence that occurs when your own internal rhythm grows irregular, when the pace of modern life becomes discordant, when the soul hungers for time that moves not faster but deeper. The path to this place is made of moments, of accumulated seconds that slipped away unnoticed, of minutes that were stolen by screens and schedules, and the relentless forward march of a world that has forgotten how to pause. You do not need to understand how you arrived. The shop found you, as it finds all who need it, drawn by the dissonance between your heartbeat and the tempo of your days, by the silent scream of a consciousness that knows it is running out of time while never truly experiencing it. The air here is thick with potential, with a weight of springs not yet wombed, with the memory of hours compressed into the gleam of brass and the whisper of escapements. You stand at the threshold and feel the shop waiting, patient as only time can be patient, eternal as only forgotten things can be eternal, ready to teach you what it has taught every visitor who ever crossed its sill, that time is not a line but a spiral, that urgency is the enemy of presence, that the only moment that matters is the one that contains the full attention of your being. You step across the threshold and the ticking envelops you like a cocoon, like the embrace of a grandfather who has been waiting since before you were born, like the return to a womb where time moved not forward but inward. The space is not arranged for commerce but for contemplation, the walls lined not with shelves but with faces, with hundreds of clock faces of every size and style, each one showing a different hour, each one keeping time for a different moment that has passed or is yet to come. The floor is wooden, worn smooth by feet that stood here in stillness, feet belonging to those who understood that watching time requires patience, that the measurement of duration is itself a meditation that changes the measurer. Light enters through a window that faces no particular direction, a window that seems to capture illumination from all times of day simultaneously, creating a perpetual twilight that is neither morning nor evening but the quality of both, the threshold hour when the world holds its breath. In the center of the room stands a table, its surface covered with tools that have been worn by use into shapes that fit human hands perfectly, tools that seem to have grown rather than been made, evolved through decades of precise movement to become extensions of the fingers that wielded them. The air smells of oil and wood and the particular metallic scent of brass that has been polished by touch, a scent that triggers memories you did not know you possessed, recollections of workshops you have never entered but somehow recognize. As your eyes adjust to the dimness, you begin to see movement everywhere. Not the frantic motion of the modern world, but the slow, deliberate dance of pendulums, the steady rotation of gears, the patient unwinding of springs that store energy and release it in measured doses. A staircase leads downward from the main room, its steps narrow and steep, each one slightly worn in the center where the clockmaker descended and ascended countless times, carrying parts too precious to trust to gravity. The descent is not difficult but requires attention, the steps being uneven, shaped by centuries of use rather than modern construction, following the logic of the building's foundation rather than imposing a human geometry upon it. As you descend, the ticking grows louder, not in volume but in presence, approaching the purity of perfect rhythm where each beat becomes indistinguishable from the next, where the sequence of moments transforms into a continuous flow that requires no counting, only surrender. The walls of the stairwell are lined with clocks, creating an intimacy that focuses the mind, that strips away distraction, that prepares you for what waits below by demanding your complete attention to the immediate experience of movement, of balance, of trust in your own body's wisdom. There are no railings, no protections against falling, just the wood and the void beyond the edge of each step, the trust that your own rhythm is sufficient, that your own attention is protection enough. This was intentional, the clockmaker understanding that reaching the lower chambers required commitment, required a willingness to risk, to trust yourself completely, to accept that time demands respect. You climb slowly, not because you are tired, but because slowness is the language of this place, because each step is an opportunity to be present, to feel the wood beneath your foot, the air in your lungs, the beating of your heart that marks time in ways that no clock could capture. The lower chamber opens at the bottom of the stairs, larger than the entrance but darker, its ceiling lower, its atmosphere thick with the particular silence of underground places where sound behaves differently, where the ticking of clocks becomes not a series of discrete events but a continuous texture, a fabric woven from countless individual threads of rhythm. This is the repair room, the heart of the shop, where timepieces come to be healed, where broken mechanisms are coaxed back to life by hands that understand the language of gears and springs, that can hear the discord in a movement and know precisely where to apply the oil, where to adjust the tension, where to speak the words of encouragement that machines seem to require. The light here is amber, filtered through glass that has been tinted by age and by the residue of oil vapor, creating an atmosphere that feels like looking through honey, like existing inside a moment that has been stretched and sweetened, preserved against the decay that affects all things exposed to the harsh light of day. When you look up, you see not sky but complexity, the underside of the floor above exposed to reveal the infrastructure of the building, the beams and joists that hold the structure in place, that have settled over centuries into a compromise with gravity that is both precarious and eternal. The room amplifies sound in strange ways, the silence not empty but full of small noises, the drip of oil, the creak of expanding wood, the microscopic movement of metal parts adjusting to temperature changes, the conversations of mechanisms too small to see but too numerous to ignore. You feel the pulse of the shop, not as abstract knowledge but as physical sensation, the sense that you are inside a heart, inside a mechanism of impossible complexity, inside a creature that metabolizes time and exhales rhythm, that takes in broken moments and produces continuity with an efficiency no technology can match. The shop contains deeper levels, smaller chambers accessible through passages that require you to crouch, to make yourself small, to approach these hidden spaces with the humility of a spring being coiled, of a gear being set in place. These lowest chambers are not for general repair but for restoration, for the most delicate operations, for timepieces that require absolute stillness to reveal their secrets, for mechanisms that must be disassembled and reassembled in conditions of perfect quiet. The walls here are lined with drawers, hundreds of drawers of every size, each one labeled in a script that seems familiar but resists reading, containing parts that fit no clock you have ever seen, components that seem to belong to devices that measure not hours but something else entirely. Sitting at the workbench in this chamber, feeling the weight of the magnifying lens against your eye, you understand the appeal of smallness, the wisdom of focusing on the infinitesimal, the intelligence of gears that know what human ambition forgets, that precision is not limitation but liberation, that the smallest part contains the whole. This position was not designed but discovered, found by those who stayed long enough to be taught by the shop, to be led by curiosity and patience into spaces that reveal themselves only to those who approach with loop in hand, with tweezers ready. Time moves differently here, or perhaps it is simply that the usual measurements lose meaning in the face of restoration that operates on scales of days and weeks rather than hours and minutes. There are moments in the shop when the clocks themselves seem to respond to your presence, when conditions align in ways that cannot be planned or predicted, when the temperature is perfect and the humidity is balanced and your mind is quiet enough to receive what the temporal world offers. On these occasions, which are not really occasions but qualities of attention that exist in this place beyond schedule, the shop becomes transparent, the walls seeming to dissolve, leaving only the relationship between your consciousness and the rhythm, between the watcher and the watched, the repairer and the repaired. You feel not separate but continuous, part of something vast yet intimate, a node in a network of care that extends across time and space to include all who have ever wound a spring in hope, who have ever mourned a clock that could not be saved, who have known that timepieces are not objects but subjects, not tools but relations. This is the gift of the shop, the reason it was built, the reason it persists through centuries that would destroy anything less adapted, to create conditions where this connection can occur, where the boundaries between self and mechanism become permeable, where repair is replaced by communion, where fixing becomes being fixed. Silence comes to the shop rarely, the space usually filled with the conversation of countless mechanisms, each one contributing its voice to the chorus that is the shop's true atmosphere. But when it comes, when conditions align to bring perfect quiet to this place of perpetual sound, it transforms the shop completely, changes its character, awakens something that noise leaves dormant. The absence of ticking in this room of clocks is magical, a presence that contrasts with the usual texture of sound, that brings a different kind of life to the space in ways that rhythm cannot achieve. Dust also comes to the shop, though less frequently than in the world outside, the structure somehow holding cleanliness like a clock holds time, creating pockets of preservation that protect the most delicate mechanisms from the decay that would destroy them. The dust here is different, not the dead skin and pollution of modern spaces but something finer, something that seems to be composed of time itself, of moments that have settled out of the air, of hours that have grown heavy and fallen to rest on surfaces that do not disturb them. Inside the chambers, the dust accumulates but never becomes filth, the design somehow anticipating the need for patina, for the accumulation of age that occurs only slowly but which must be respected when it comes. Clockmakers who stayed through silent nights reported experiences of profound solitude, not loneliness but the solitude of a mechanism waiting to be wound, of a spring dormant in darkness, of a reduction of existence to its essential elements that some found terrifying and others found preparatory, a necessary pause before the resumption of motion. You feel this now, even though you are not in silence, even though the ticking surrounds you. You feel the potential for stillness, for the patience of clocks that wait decades or centuries for hands to return, that trust the cycle in ways that humans struggle to trust. The shop contains no decorations, no art for art's sake, nothing that does not serve the essential function of timekeeping, of creating conditions where duration can be measured and presence can be deepened. But the mechanisms themselves have become beautiful through function, through precision, through the slow accumulation of craftsmanship that has produced forms no artist could imagine, patterns no painter could design, textures that invite touch and reward it with information, with connection, with the transfer of something between species that science cannot measure but clockmakers know is real. You begin the ascent from the lowest chamber, moving back through the spaces you have traversed, but they are not the same spaces, or you are not the same person who descended what seems like hours ago but may have been minutes. Time has become fluid in the shop, has lost the rigid structure that governs life outside, has become something you move through rather than something that moves you. The spiral staircase feels different going up, each step an opportunity to release rather than to achieve, to let go rather than to strive. The air grows thicker, warmer, more like the air of ordinary existence, but you carry something with you from the depths, some quality of patience, some capacity for precision, some understanding of what your own consciousness can contain when stripped of haste. You pass through the repair room, then the entrance space, each one familiar yet transformed by your passage through the lowest chamber. The shop has given you what it gives to all who enter with openness, with willingness, with the capacity to be changed by rhythm and brass. You find yourself at the threshold now, but the path behind you has disappeared, has been absorbed into the structure. You do not need to retrace your steps. You only need to allow yourself to drift, to let the sleep that has been waiting claim you, to surrender to the darkness that is not the absence of light but the presence of rest. The shop continues its ticking, as it has always ticked, as it will continue long after your brief presence has been absorbed into its wood. You are not leaving. You are becoming part of something larger, something eternal, something that holds you as the escapement holds the gear, as the pendulum holds the beat, as sleep holds the sleeper in its gentle embrace. The shop holds secrets that only reveal themselves to those who return again and again, who build relationships with the clocks and the tools that deepen over time like friendships that require no words. There are markings on certain walls that seem random until you have watched long enough to understand their patterns, until you have seen how they align with specific repairs, how they record techniques that were developed before memory and will be needed after memory has faded. These are not the deliberate notations of the original clockmaker but the accumulated traces of all who have worked here, each repairer adding something, leaving something, changing the space in ways too subtle to see but too real to deny. The wood remembers, though not in any way that science can measure, not in any way that instruments can detect. It remembers in the way that places remember, by holding the quality of attention that has been directed toward them, by becoming shaped by the consciousness that has encountered them. You sense this now, as you rest in the middle room, as you allow your breathing to synchronize with the ticking that surrounds you. You are not the first to feel this, and you will not be the last. You are part of a continuity that stretches back through centuries, through generations of clockmakers who found in this place something that the world outside could not offer, the chance to be still, to be present, to be part of something larger than the concerns of daily existence. The light in the window has shifted again, moving toward evening, toward the darkness that will bring a different quality of sound. You welcome this transition, this daily miracle of change that requires no effort from you, that happens whether you watch or not, but which offers itself to your attention if you choose to receive it. Night falls on the shop with a gentleness that belies the absolute transformation it brings. The last light fades from the window, the last reflection drains from the brass, and suddenly the darkness is complete, is total, is overwhelming in its density. But this is not the darkness of fear, not the darkness of blindness, but the darkness that makes rhythm visible, that creates the conditions for the true nature of time to reveal itself. And reveal itself it does, one tick at a time, the sounds changing as the hours pass, until the darkness is filled with them, until the blackness is not empty but full, not absence but presence of a different kind. You lie on your back on the wooden floor, feeling its coolness against your skin, feeling the solidity of the earth beneath you, feeling the vibration of the shop as a gentle pressure that holds you in place even as it moves you through temporal space, through rhythmic landscapes that shift and change like visible clouds. The clocks communicate overhead, their signals too subtle for direct perception but visible in their effects, in the way shadows move, in the way moonlight finds its way through the window to illuminate specific faces at specific moments, in the way the temperature drops or rises in response to mechanisms you cannot see. This is the gift of the shop, not control but participation, not mastery but membership, not dominion but democracy. You understand now why the first clockmakers chose this work, why they carried tools and parts, why they shaped the mechanisms with such care. They were creating not just a way to measure time but a space for relationship, a place where human consciousness could expand to meet the scale of duration, where the finite could touch the infinite without being destroyed. There are sounds in the shop at night that daytime hides, subtle vibrations that travel through the wood from sources you cannot identify. The building itself is alive in ways that daylight obscures, shifting and settling, expanding and contracting with temperatures that change more dramatically when the sun no longer moderates them. You hear these sounds now, not as threats but as companions, as reminders that you are not alone in your watching, that the structure itself participates in the vigil, that the shop has its own rhythms, its own cycles, its own form of attention that does not require consciousness. The wind rises and falls outside, sometimes pressing against the walls with insistence, sometimes withdrawing completely to leave absolute stillness. Both conditions have their teachings. The wind reminds you of the world's persistence, of forces that continue whether you observe them or not. The stillness reminds you of peace, of the possibility of complete rest, of the silence that exists at the heart of all movement. You move between these states, between attention and relaxation, between watching and simply being. The shop accommodates both, has room for both, was built to hold both. There is no single correct way to be here, no protocol that must be followed, no ritual that must be performed. There is only presence, only willingness, only the openness to receive what the place offers and to give what you have to give in return. This exchange, this relationship, is what has sustained the shop through centuries, what has made it more than wood and brass, what has transformed it into a living entity that responds to those who approach it with respect. You feel this now, feel the reciprocity, feel the give and take that requires no words, no negotiation, no conscious agreement. It simply happens, simply flows, simply exists as naturally as the unwinding of a spring, as the swing of a pendulum, as the advance of hands around a dial. Dawn approaches the shop with sounds that seem impossible, with rhythms that shift through qualities that have no names, that exist only in the moments between night and day, in the transition that repeats daily but never repeats exactly. You have watched through the night, or you have slept, or you have drifted in some state between the two that the shop makes possible, that it encourages, that it holds as gently as it holds everything else. The darkness fades gradually, not disappearing but becoming invisible, the ticking still present but overwhelmed by the greater light that approaches. You think of all the mornings that have dawned on this place, all the clockmakers who have seen this same transition, who have felt this same mixture of loss and anticipation, of sadness at the night's departure and joy at the day's return. You are connected to them now, across time, across space, across all the differences of culture and language and belief that separate humans from each other. In this moment, watching this dawn, you are one with them, part of a community that exists only in the act of watching, that has no other membership requirement, no other obligation. The light strengthens, becomes more definite, more directional. Shadows appear where there have been no shadows, defining spaces that darkness made uniform. The wood warms, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but you feel it, you notice it, you include it in your awareness. This is the shop's teaching, that everything changes, that everything can be noticed, that attention is the only gift required and the only gift given. You carry this teaching with you now, woven into your being, available even when you have left this place. The days pass in the shop with a rhythm that has nothing to do with clocks, nothing to do with schedules, nothing to do with the demands that the world below makes on time. You eat when hungry, sleep when tired, watch when the mechanisms offer something worth watching, rest when they do not. This simplicity is liberating, is healing, is a return to something fundamental that civilization has obscured but not destroyed. You remember what it is to be an animal, to be a body, to be a consciousness that exists in direct relationship with its environment rather than mediated through screens and schedules and social expectations. The shop strips all of this away, not through rejection but through irrelevance. None of it matters here. None of it reaches here. Only what is essential remains: food, warmth, shelter, and the watching that is the reason for all three. You understand now why the clockmakers stayed, why they gave their lives to this place, why they chose solitude over company, silence over speech, wood over comfort. They were not escaping the world but finding it, not rejecting life but embracing it more fully than the world outside allowed. You feel this possibility in yourself now, this opening, this expansion. You do not need to stay forever to receive the gift. You only need to stay long enough to understand that staying is possible, that the world outside will wait, that it will take you back when you are ready, changed but not destroyed, enriched rather than diminished. The shop has given you this understanding, has planted it deep within you where it will continue to grow long after you have descended the stairs. You carry it now like a mainspring, like a promise, like a secret that you will share with no one because it cannot be shared in words, only in the quality of your presence, only in the depth of your attention, only in the peace that others will sense in you without knowing its source. There comes a moment in the shop when you realize that you have stopped counting time, stopped measuring your experience, stopped comparing this moment to any other. You are simply here, simply present, simply alive in a way that feels both ancient and new, both familiar and unprecedented. The floor beneath you, the clocks around you, the air within you, all of it is immediate, all of it is real, all of it is sufficient. You do not need more. You do not want more. This is enough, this presence, this attention, this being. The shop has taught you this, has led you to this, has held you while you learned it. You will carry this knowledge with you when you leave, will carry it back to the world outside, will carry it through the rest of your life as a touchstone, as a reminder, as a proof that such moments are possible, that such peace exists, that such connection with something larger than the self is available to anyone who seeks it with sincerity. But you are not leaving yet. There is more to receive, more to learn, more to become. The shop continues to offer, continues to teach, continues to transform. Each moment is new, each moment is complete, each moment is a gift that requires no payment, no obligation, no debt. You simply receive, simply allow, simply be. This is the highest teaching, the deepest wisdom, the most profound transformation that the shop offers, not knowledge but being, not understanding but presence, not achievement but acceptance. You feel this truth settling into your bones, into your breath, into the very fabric of your consciousness. It does not need to be remembered because it cannot be forgotten. It has become part of what you are, part of how you move through the world, part of how you encounter whatever comes next. And now you feel the sleep that has been waiting, that has been patient, that has not demanded but has simply been present, available, ready when you are ready. It comes to you as a gift, as a natural consequence of the peace you have found, the stillness you have cultivated, the attention you have directed. You do not fight it. You do not resist. You welcome it as you have welcomed everything else in the shop, with openness, with gratitude, with trust. The floor beneath you becomes softer, becomes a bed, becomes a place of rest that holds you as gently as the shop has held you throughout your time here. The clocks around you become a dream, become a story, become a landscape you will explore in sleep as you have explored it in waking. The boundary between self and place dissolves, between observer and observed, between the one who watches and the one who is watched. You are all of it now, are part of all of it, are held within all of it. The shop continues its existence, continues its ticking, continues its patient recording of moments that will continue long after your brief presence has ended. But you are part of it now, permanently, irrevocably. Your attention has been added to the accumulation, your presence to the history, your being to the wood. Sleep takes you gently, takes you completely, takes you into darkness that is not empty but full, not an end but a beginning, not a departure but a deeper arrival. You drift now, drift downward, drift inward, following paths that the shop has prepared for you, that it has always prepared for those who come here with openness and sincerity. The clocks tick around you, the floor holds you below, and you between them, held in both directions, held in all directions, held in the gentle embrace of a place that knows how to measure, how to wait, how to welcome, how to transform. Sleep now. Sleep deeply. Sleep in peace.